Welcome to the Landit podcast. I'm your host, Josh Stockel. I had a guest on last night and we are just sad because he was phenomenal and we lost his video. We got all the audio, we just lost the video, and we didn't want to reshoot it because some of the stuff he shared was just really good and I didn't want to lose that. I'm going to introduce him right now and then we'll go straight into the audio for you guys to listen to. I think you're going to love it. One thing before we get into that, the rest of the episode, one of the things I would just encourage you to do, come subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to our podcast. We're on Spotify. We are on Apple, a couple others as well. This is what really helps us continue to climb in the algorithm where they start putting our stuff up. And if you like this, if you like these kind of interviews, leave us a review, leave us a comment. Let's talk about what it is you want to see more of or hear more of. One of the things that you're going to hear in this episode with our guest is I'm asking him real questions. I'm asking about his business. He shares some numbers. He shares details. We talk about stuff from how does he find and retain great employees to how does he get through really tough seasons when things seem like they're falling apart. So we're going to get into all of that on this episode. So definitely want to check it out. Let me introduce, his name is Jayson Lang. He is the owner of Rangefinder Excavation based out of Midland, Texas, doing land clearing excavation, a lot of dirt work. Enjoy the episode and subscribe and leave a comment. Jayson, thanks so much for joining us today on the show. I really appreciate you being here.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your business. Tell us things like where you're at, what size you're at, what the revenue goals are this year. Just sometimes our listeners like to know what stage of the game our guests are at. So just give us a little bit about your company.
I'm hoping to push for about 5 million gross this year. I did 5 million last year gross. I'm hoping to at least keep that same steady pace. In the next couple of years, I'd like to get a little bit bigger, but I still like being around that size so I can manage the crews and be more one-on-one with the customer.
How many crews do you have right now?
I've got 2 crews right now, depending on the size of the job. Some jobs take six to 8 people. So I'll stick the majority of my guys on that job. And then some jobs only take 2 guys.
Okay. Yeah. Now that's one of my questions I had for you. And this is something I get asked by guys all the time about the bigger companies is how do you keep those crews? Like, how do you find the right guys and how do you keep them? Especially as like seasons shift and change and like busyness load gets high and then low. Like, what's your process for that?
When you find out the secret, let me know.
Yeah, I know.
I
know.
I've talked to a lot of very successful business owners, and this goes for any kind of business. It doesn't go just for my line of business, is duplicate yourself when it comes to your top end people. And that is very difficult to do. I've had that, a couple of those guys, but they were so successful with me that they figured out that, oh, I can do this myself.
Yeah.
And went out and started their own business because they had that self-drive that most people don't have. And they have that pride in the workmanship that they do that most people don't have. You have to have those qualities. Otherwise you can't duplicate yourself in somebody that doesn't have the natural drive to do the work.
So you'd say it's more about the personality and character and the attitude and less about the experience.
Yes. One of the guys that I had working for me worked for me for 5 years.
Awesome.
I taught him everything I know. And it got to a point where I would see him once a month and I would send him an email. Here's the plans to the job. Here's the location, the equipment. This is when we start. And I would never see him.
Yeah. That's pretty great.
He had full access to company money. I never had issues, just loyal. He made every move like he was an owner himself on the job.
That's great. Did he have a chance to keep moving up? Like, how did you motivate him like year after year?
I was paying him $35 an hour with the company truck, with company credit card, go anywhere, do anything on the company credit card with the company truck. that's about as everything I could do for him.
Yeah.
And so then he started his own company, and basically any jobs that I can't get to, I give to him because
Hmm.
he would take care of the job as well as I will, me and my guys will. So he's representing his company, yes, on the job site, but he's also representing me as as his general contractor.
Okay. That makes sense. I feel like that's all industries, but for sure, laborers in the service-based businesses, to find them, to get them quality and built up, you run the risk of losing them, right? Because that's just
Yes.
part of the game. They get to the point where they're like, "Hey, I see in dollar signs, maybe just doing this on my own." But sometimes those guys don't realize, like, the cost of launching a business. They don't understand hiring. They don't understand bidding. They don't understand, like, the whole business side sometimes. And
Well,
so either they jump off and figure it out, but
yes, I had trained him on how to bid work, and I
yeah,
had trained him on how to manage the jobs. The only
yeah,
thing that he didn't know is how to balance the budget. And I'm going to be honest, I'm still learning myself with doing that. And I consider myself decent at it, but
yeah,
he was one of those guys that was real hard to get along with at times because he felt like, well, you get those prima donnas. And at
yeah,
times he was that way, but sometimes it was justified, sometimes it wasn't.
yeah,
And when he finally got his own business going, he called me about a year later after I helped him get going and apologized on some of the way he acted several times, realizing that I made these decisions based on money and what we needed to get done on the project. And he didn't realize that at the time.
yeah. Like, as he's learning, he's figured it out too.
Yeah.
Because we all are. When you start early on, you got a lot of little mistakes to make.
Yes. The
That
first
makes
year he was in business, I gave him over $1 million worth of work.
dang,
He did a
good
million
job.
dollars worth of work in 1 year because
Mm,
of what I had given him, and he had done some of his own stuff as well.
wow. It's pretty nice of you.
Oh, the backstory on him is I'm best friends with his older brother,
Okay.
and my mother dated their dad in the 70s.
Okay.
So it's
That,
more of a family thing with
yeah.
him than it is than just employee.
Yeah. It's like Uncle Jason.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost family like that. And real close friends. There's a little bit more grace given and a lot more love. But again, that's just part of as we own businesses and grow them. Like, our staff sometimes rise up and start to venture out on their own. And I don't even think that's necessarily even a bad thing. I understand, like, sometimes it will create competitors. Like, I have worked for other companies before I started my own, and it's just part of the process. You just got to figure out what's best for your own company. But we all know that the years go on and the learning lessons go on. You end up getting more wisdom and more understanding on how to run the company that in the size of
Yes.
your company, even for you, Jason, has shown that your size keeps growing. And, it's hard for someone like him to start fresh, jump to those numbers that you're at. And guys who
That's
wanna work with you are like, "Hey, this guy's been around for a while, does really good work, and is at a size that can handle some of the jobs that we're doing."
I
Right?
started out with a 1978 Champion blade motor grader
Mm,
and borrowed rollers, borrowed water
mm.
trucks, did everything that you could possibly. I started with no money.
Wow.
We didn't, my wife and I paid a guy 5,000 a month for a 95 model cat dozer until I paid it off.
Wow, that's wild.
I
What year did you
mean,
start?
I started in with my dozer. I bought my dozer that was the first machine I bought. I started it in 16.
Okay,
I started
that's
running it
wild.
in 16.
That's wild. Okay. So you how did you get that first one then?
A friend of my father-in-law's was selling that dozer and talked him into selling it to me.
Oh, okay.
And I just started doing grubbing and clearing and some reclamation for some pits for oil wells and just things like that with that little D5 dozer,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
went from there, and then did well with it, and then bought a 78 model Champion motor grader for 30 grand
Yep.
and started just moving up from there.
Yeah. That was gonna be my question is like, all right, so the early days, you've got this one dozer and you've got a couple items that you were renting as you needed. What were the services that you were really offering? What was your total package that you were offering back then?
Well, I didn't say I rented, I said I borrowed
Borrowed,
from
right?
friends.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Even better.
I was a horse trading son of a gun. I would go, "Hey, let me use your water truck for 2 days and I'll come clean this up for you with the
Oh,
dozer."
heck,
I mean,
awesome for you.
I'm not talking about rent, I'm talking about horse trading.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I do that all the time.
Yeah, I was not about to pay any money out that I didn't have to pay out. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I did everything I could do to whatever I could possibly put together, I put together
Okay.
for work.
All right. At that time, it was really just excavation, and were you doing land clearing too?
Yes, yes, that was the
Okay.
majority of it
Okay.
when I got that dozer.
Okay. Clearing and stuff. Okay. And then so fast forward, like, what are you doing now? What are your line of services you're offering?
Um, we've been doing a little bit of everything. We've got customers that will ask us to we don't directly do concrete or asphalt any. I used to do asphalt, but it got too hard to keep an asphalt crew busy all the time. So I
Yeah.
sub the concrete and asphalt out to other companies that I use regularly. But majority of it is just land clearing, commercial sites, RV parks, man camps. We do a lot of subdivisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Share with me a little bit about that and with our listeners too. I know when we first met and talked, you were sharing how you were working majority of your revenue this past year coming in through a builder, right? A developer.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Beaton
Share a
Bow
little bit
Homes
about
is who
that
we
project, how
work,
you got
we do a
that.
lot of it.
Yeah.
So
So share a little bit how you found that, what you were doing, how that grew your company.
I worked for a company when the oil crashed I
Mhm.
believe in 2015. I went to work for a company that was doing work for Beaton Bow Homes. And then I worked for him for about a year and a half, 2 years. And I didn't like the way he treated these people. So went back to work for a company that I was working for a little while. And then the company I had worked for, Beaton Bow Homes, they had gotten run off. And the main contractor that was in charge of the civil side of Beaton Bow Homes called me and said, "Hey, we got this dirt contractor that can't get the work done. We need you to jump in here. We know you can do the work."
Yeah.
And we started working over there and haven't really left.
Mm. Yeah. And that's really like a big scaled piece. I know we've talked some marketing stuff now looking for other revenue streams too, but that's a sweet deal to land that and have some consistent, especially during all the growth we've had from COVID and stuff here in Texas.
Yeah.
That's a pretty sweet deal then to have. It's almost like consistent, regular work coming in, right?
Yes. Beaton Bow Homes slowed way down during COVID. They didn't get much done during COVID.
Oh,
Everything
okay.
kind of, yes, everything. February 15th, I had $3 million in contracts. And on by the end of February, I didn't have nothing.
Mm, wow. So what'd you do?
Panicked, panicked
Yeah.
and went to work.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah. You just get to
had
work, right?
yeah, we just stayed to the grinding stone. We had 20, 25 guys. And then by the end of COVID, we only had me and one other guy working.
Wow.
And by 2020, end of 2021, I was back up to 10 guys. But
We're
it
talking
was,
with that phone calling. What does that look like? How do you go from
um,
you and one other back up to 10?
you just hit the right lick. Eventually every dog has its day. We just finally hit a good lick and finally put some jobs together, and the economy started picking back up and people started feeling better about everything going on. And finally just put some work together.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
problems was all the bigger companies were just basically keeping their guys working and not making much profit just to keep the guys that they had and move
Yeah.
on to keep going forward. And I wasn't willing to go down that cheap on my work.
Yeah, that's a good topic we should talk about for a second because that is the number one, I think for all businesses, the number one temptation when things get tough is to just slash prices and get whatever you can get. And it's just a race to the bottom. And I think there's a lot of negatives that come with that. So what was your reasoning behind staying where you're at and how'd that play out for you?
My reasoning is I take pride in my work and I expect the
Yeah.
people that work for me to take the same pride. And I'm very picky with
Right.
who I hire. I go through guys, not regular, but I've got a really good crew for the last year and a half, 2 years now. I've only had a little bit of turnover, mainly because one guy had to move to out of state because his family had some family issues for health wise and just things like that. Mainly, it's the only main reason I lose people nowadays. But it's I expect if I'm going to give you the quality work that you expect me to do, I expect to get paid for that same quality.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But the risk is, especially when things are tight, is do we lose that job to the guys who are lowballing, right? And
Yes.
so the value has to be stacked. That's something that we talk about all the time in business, even in my industry, the marketing industry, is that you've got to be able to stack value. You can't just say it's price versus price. Because if it's a race to the bottom, there's always going to be some guy at the very bottom. There's just no way to
Yeah.
grow your business. Like, you're not going to get back up to 10 plus employees racing to the bottom on pricing. And so in those hard moments, it's like you have to figure out, all right, what's an additional level of value we can add to our services that makes somebody want to work with us? So obviously quality, but also what else can we stack on? What else does someone get for working with us instead of just lowering price, lowering price, lowering price? Like I imagine there's something similar for you in figuring out what that added value is.
Did I say that again? The
I
added,
figure for you, for your industry, there's got to be something that you can stack value on. So it's, I obviously could do the service. So can this guy. He's going to race to the bottom. Our quality is going to be high, but also here's another added value for working with us versus that
m-
guy,
my
not
added
just price.
value with most companies is they're not going to get the direct contact. They're not going to get a direct conversation with the owner.
There you
And
go.
I'm going to be able to make a decision. I'm right there with the guys regularly
Mhm.
and on the job. I know what's going on the job. I can be there within a few minutes and the customer doesn't have to get an I don't know answer.
Yeah, that's good. And people want
That
that, right? I hear that all the
Yes,
time. People are like, you're the owner. I want to talk to you, not just another manager, an ops manager or whatever.
exactly. That's why I don't want to get too big, but because I do enjoy dealing with most customers are easy to deal with. They just want a good job done with anybody else.
Yeah, for sure. What lessons or mistakes have shaped how you run things now? What things from your past or even in during those tough seasons, like what mistakes have you made or just even lessons learned?
Oh golly, there's so many mistakes and there's so many to there's so many to keep going. So
Oh,
many to keep having.
that's real talk right
I begged Beaton Bow Homes to let me do some cut field work for them for years, and they finally let me have the opportunity to. And the first one they gave me was one of the worst jobs that you could possibly get. It was pure blow sand. You couldn't
there.
get around on the job. You had to have a four-wheel drive vehicle. There wasn't
Oof.
any I couldn't get any articulated trucks in this area for months. So I was
Mhm.
using truck drivers. They were getting stuck. The last month of
Ugh.
on that job, I finally got articulated trucks in. They finally started having some at the rental stores and
Yeah.
I finally got to work. But I tell you what, that job there just beat me and my guys to death.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how hard we all worked. Nothing went right with it. And my biggest thing, in my opinion, is just don't give up. You just you
Yeah.
you just keep grinding until you're done.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. You have to. And, when you got a client here who has an expectation that they were on that phone with you early on or in that meeting saying, you said for this price, you were going to do this job. Now, whether you did your homework or figured it out or whether the stand wasn't drivable, it's like they have an expectation that's on you. Yeah. And so it's either we can quit or we can come back to the client and complain, or we can just grind it out and do a good job.
The reason I grind and the reason I'm still doing work for them is because I grinded it out and they saw how hard and how difficult the job went.
Oh, wow.
And they knew. So they approached me with a change order, not me the other way
Wow.
around.
Man,
So
that's unheard of. That's hard.
that's the Beanbow Homes is not a normal developer. They
Yeah.
want
I don't blame you.
their subs to be successful. Yes, they're like everybody else. They want the work done as cheaply as possible.
Right. Right.
But if they see
Profit.
that the job is just basically beating you to death and it's just not working,
Yeah.
they will approach you and have a conversation about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But still, good on them for coming to you with that instead of just
Yes.
saying, hey, we're going to keep this profit unless they come and push. Good for them.
Yes, they made it right with me. I didn't make
Wow.
any money, but I walked away with all the bills paid,
Wow. Good job grinding
which
it out.
which was a blessing because I wasn't sleeping. We were
Yeah.
working 12-hour shifts 7 days a week. It
Mm.
was rough.
That's a good word. I think even for the guys who are younger and just getting into this industry is knowing that those days are coming, those jobs are coming that are going to
Yes.
require so much of you. How do you get through it? What would you tell someone younger who's like about to have one of those experiences? Like, how do you help them? Hey, let me just encourage you. This is what it's going to take for you to get through that.
When you start your own company, you don't only have your family for responsibility, you have everybody that works for you you're responsible for them and their families.
Yeah. There you
So
go.
that drives me harder because not everybody thinks of it this way, but they're an extension of your own family in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I've heard some guys say that it's like they're getting paid. These people are putting their livelihood in our hands. So we've got to make sure that they're getting paid and getting taking care of their families. And right? Do you feel like that burden on your shoulders? I've got
Oh,
to take
yes.
care of these multiple families.
Yes.
Right.
Regularly.
Yeah, I feel that too. And I've seen a lot of guys cut corners though, and they're quick to cut those people because they don't think like that. And I hate that for those families.
Yep.
It's like a selfish attitude that I come first, my employees come second. And I think it should be the flip. But we seek to serve and care for those under our care, right?
My guys know that if I have it, they have it.
Mm. Yeah. What do you mean by that? Unpack that.
Pretty much that if their family is suffering and they need a hand up, then
Mhm.
if as long as I've got it, then they'll have that hand up as well. Doesn't
Okay.
mean I'm not directly saying financially, it's just whatever they need at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. We talk about that internally here with my team as well. Just that, what do you need? Not just what do you want, but what do you need? And if you need
Yes,
time off, take that. If you need more money, let's do that. What do you need from me to make sure that you are as successful as possible in your role and you feel the most cared for by me and our company? And what I
yes,
found is that's a great recipe for retention as well, right? We've
yes,
seen people stick around because those pieces are in place. It's like, why would I want to go anywhere else?
yes.
So, what do you think is the biggest challenge right now in your industry? So, doing land clearing excavation, like what's the biggest challenge?
The my biggest struggle is just trying to keep up with the bids because I'm in the field
Yes.
and in the office as much as I am, trying to just keep
Yeah.
up with everything and a balance with it.
Yeah, balancing the two. I think that is one of the challenges, like you had said earlier, one of the pros or one of the values that you have is that company who's hired you gets access to you. And it's like the first thing that begins to become a bottleneck is if you're out in the field and taking calls and emails and doing bids, it's kind of like you become the new bottleneck, right? Like
Yeah.
you are trying to be 2 to 3 different people at 2 to 3 different places at the same time, and you just can't, right?
Yep. You're right.
Hey, you get it. I think this has been really good. I think it's been helpful for others. So we can call it a night and go enjoy your anniversary. Hey, thank you so much, Jason, for being on tonight and for sharing what you shared. And I think it's going to be really helpful. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. I had fun.
Yeah, it was fun. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. All right. Bye.